Welcome, everyone, to the Retro Pool Guy podcast. I'm your host, the Retro Pool Guy. And as always, I'm joined here with my co host, producer, and longtime good friend. He is the Drunken Beard, but I just call him Nick. How you doing, Nick?
Living the dream, enjoying my extended vacation due to my layoff.
Sounds like a really good time.
It has been.
Not stressful at all, I'm sure, right?
Oh no, I'm good. I'm good.
Well, that's good, man. Pretty excited today. We're going to be talking about one of my favorite games of all time, Metal Gear Solid for the PlayStation. Such a fantastic game. But first, I'm going to bring in our special guest, a friend of mine that I met on Twitter a while back. He is the owner and operator of Joypad Lad Shop, a retro game shop. Well, it's an online store. So let's bring in Gary. How you doing, Gary?
Hey, doing pretty good. I mean, if you asked me a week ago, I wasn't doing too well. I had a couple weeks of sleep deprivation or something, but it was kicking my butt pretty bad. So got a lot more sleep this week and starting to feel better. Luckily, so I could do the podcast. So that's good.
Well, dude, I'm glad you made it, man. Uh,
Yeah, it was crazy. I didn't know what was wrong with me for a bit, and they're like, "Wait, you're only sleeping like 3-4 hours a night?" I'm like, "Yeah, what's the big deal?" And they're like, "Oh, well, that's probably the reason you're having all these problems." I'm like, "Okay, well, I guess I gotta sleep, and then I gotta de-stress too." So, I mean, the best result you can get from the doctor is what I got is, "Hey, just sleep and play games and chill more." So I was like, "Okay, cool, thanks."
Man, that's what I need to hear from a doctor. Like, did you get a note for that to, like, give to your wife? Like
A
No, that's
prescription
what I
to
need.
chill.
I mean, if I had an actual job where I had to go give a note, then that's what I would ask them to put that on the note. So I would give it to my boss, be like, "Hey, the doctor said doctor's orders. I got to play games. I got to play Metal Gear Solid on PS1, and I got to get a lot of sleep. Sorry, I got a podcast coming up." That's what I would have told
that sounds like a dream come true for me almost. Maybe I
them.
need to go see a doctor. I can
Yep.
totally relate though, man. Like, it's hard to, like, you know, not sleep. Like, I don't wanna sleep. Like,
Yeah, me neither. And I've been trying to work and work and just keep things going with the business, and then keep up with the kids because I have one that does homeschool, and I don't like teach the actual homeschool. She has videos she watches, but I have to keep up with it. And then when she needs help and keeping her moving along through the day, and then I have another kid that I got to take care of that's not in homeschool throughout the day as well as doing the business. So I always try to catch up when they're all asleep, and I'm never even that tired, anyways, and never want to sleep. Like you said, there's too much to do, and sometimes you just need a few hours at the end of the day to chill anyway. And I just was always like 3-4 hours a night. I was fine, and then take a nap if I need to. But then the time changed, and I've never had it mess me up that bad, but it did really, because I was going to bed at like 3 or 4 in the morning and waking up at like 7. And then I lost an hour there because of the time change, and couldn't fall asleep at the same way. And it just started to add up. And I was,
well, plus
I was
you
like
just
dead almost.
you just recently moved to Texas around my area. So
Hmm.
was that so you just went through a time change there too, right? Like, not that long
Yeah.
ago.
It was at the end of June last year. So it'll be a couple months. It'll be a year. So I had to get used to that time. But just the time change, and from daylight savings is what happened a couple weeks ago really messed me up. Normally doesn't, but I don't know. I'm getting older now, so I got to realize I can't do everything that I think I could do.
Aren't we all, man? We're all
Yeah.
getting older, dude. I'm
That's what the
feeling it,
drugs are
I'm
for.
telling you. Right. So, tell me, man, how'd you get into gaming? Like, this is a question I have to ask every guest because I'm always curious. Is what console did you start with? Like, for me, it was the NES. That was my first console. What
Well,
was yours?
I remember the first one being the Atari 2600. This would have been in the mid to late 80s because I was born in 1984. So first couple years after I was born, I remember playing games pretty young. And I have like a good divider to kind of keep track of the time, because when I was 5 years old in kindergarten, I got hit by a truck, and I broke my leg and had a bad concussion, and I was stuck in the hospital with
Yeah.
almost a full body cast. Yeah, I have a photo of it from when I was a kid, and I remember I was so mad, like I didn't want to do anything or talk to anyone until what they did is finally, I don't know who it was, if it was my dad or my mom or uncle who had the idea, but they brought my entire Nintendo Entertainment System and hooked it up at the hospital. I have a picture of me in the bed on Halloween, with, you can see the console, you can see the NES Advantage controller on top of it. There's Karate Kid in complete in box in the background, and there's one of those like little suitcase things that they have for the Nintendo games. We used to have that, and there's a bunch of our games in there. And you even have the old McDonald's Halloween buckets in the background of the photo too. And that was the only thing that finally got me to open up when I was there. But so I have that like as a reference to, my gaming, like where I got started and where I went from there. So obviously we had the Nintendo there. I remember getting it probably around Christmas, not that long before then, but I remember earlier than then playing Atari and playing games like Frostbite and Pitfall, of course. I don't know if we had Pac-Man at the time, but Frogger and Combat was like one of our top games I remember playing a ton of, and probably some of the sports games, baseball maybe. But a one thing though, like really early on, even when we had the Nintendo and everything, I remember going to the arcade and playing a lot of arcade games more than anything, because we had this pizza place we would go to called Maxwell Street Pizza in Southern California, and they had like this huge arcade room, and I remember playing the original Street Fighter on there, and then eventually Street Fighter 2. They moved everything out of that room and kind of lined them along a hallway that led towards the bathrooms, so it was kind of annoying if you had to go to the bathroom and you had to walk past a bunch of people playing video games. And but I remember playing Street Fighter 2 there. They had it right on the corner before you would go down that hallway when it first came out, and at 5 6 years old or whatever, I remember, when you're a kid, like a lot of times people, let you win, and you let kids win sometimes when you play them. I know for sure, like not
Mm,
everyone was letting me, not letting, they weren't letting me win because I was.
uh,
I mean, I don't do that. I don't I don't let my kids win, but
I don't let my kids win
you
that.
got to beat them like 20 times before you give them, one, just to get them to want to play the next time. You got to, oh, you beat me, okay, good. You're getting better, and then so then they won't just quit and not want to play next time. But yeah, so I remember playing that a lot. Street Fighter was like one of my first big games, uh, and I would beat like adults all the time, and they'd be like, "What? How's this kid so good?" But it was just because I was so hooked into the arcade at that age. Even like I mentioned, when I had the body cast and they let me out of the hospital, I still had it from like just under my chest all the way down my right leg, like completely all the way down,
Oh
and then
wow.
halfway on my left leg with a bar between my two legs. So I couldn't really walk or do anything. So they would take me in one of those little red wagons to the pizza place, and even though I couldn't really do much, I would still be there. So that's how dedicated I was to being in that pizza place and the arcade. That I was pretty good at. I was back in the day before the internet came along, and then when you thought you were good at a game and you go online and everyone that plays all day every day just thrashes you and you feel horrible. I was probably one of the best. I was probably one of the best players in Street Fighter in the town at the time, just at like 5 or 6 years old, because I was there playing it all the time. But that's how I got started, and I know it's a pretty crazy story, but
That's
that,
amazing.
that was just the beginning, in the late '80s.
That's cool. I love how gaming does that for people, like, I mean, you're just a kid, you get hit by a freaking truck, you know. I can only imagine how that felt. Like that had to be no pun intended, but crushing, your
Yeah,
spirit. And so
it just sounds like to me you didn't play enough Frogger.
Yeah, no, I don't know. Here's the thing, though. Like, I know when people have like a traumatic incident like that, they kind of make stuff up in their head, like they think something happened that didn't really. In my mind, my memory of it still, even to this day, is that I crossed the street. The problem was that I was with my brother, who was like 3 years old, and then not really our stepbrother, and he never really became, but it was the guy that my mom was dating at the time, so he was kind of like a stepbrother, and he was just like a young teen, if that, and he was walking us across the street to the grocery store, and we were in the crosswalk, and the truck was on the opposite end of like a four-way intersection, but he wanted to still go through and cut in front of us while we were in the crosswalk still. But I, for whatever reason, decided to run ahead of them. And I remember in my mind running and jumping and landing on the curb, and that's the last memory I have, which obviously didn't happen. So I don't even remember the truck coming after me, getting hit, flying 20 feet in the air. I do remember waking up, and it was like one of those sitcoms where someone's knocked out and then they wake up and everyone's around them, like four people staring down at you. And I
Yeah.
remember waking up and seeing like a cop and whoever else looking at me. And I remember trying to sit up, and they're like, "No, no, don't move." And I couldn't because my leg was broke so high, like right under my hip. Like I couldn't, when you lay down and try to sit up, you put pressure. You have to use those muscles there to help pull you up. I couldn't do it because the leg was broken there. And they're like, "No, don't." And then after that, I was fine until I started crying because they cut my brand new jeans, and I thought I was going to get in trouble with my mom. So I mean, for
Oh,
having that having like that bad of a traumatic incident at 5 years old, I was pretty tough. I was pretty okay, except for once I got into the hospital. And speaking of sitcoms and and all that, I actually did have, like you see in sitcoms where someone has their leg up in traction and someone actually accidentally knocks it down. That did happen to me. So, and that
oh,
hurt like hell. And then when they would move me from bed to bed, because you couldn't really isolate my leg because it was so high of a break, whenever they had to move me in the middle of the night and they thought that, oh, he's sleeping, we could just move him, I woke up and felt horrible pain every time. But after that, besides just that, it wasn't like that crazy. I don't even remember the truck or anything. Plus, we got a settlement and I got like 20 grand out of it when I was 18. So, I guess that's cool.
bonus. Nice. So, is the NES then your favorite system, or do you have a
It's up there. I don't know. I mean, for the longest time, I don't know how high it would have been up there, but the NES Advantage controller is like my favorite controller of all time, probably because I love arcade so much too, and I
I love that
just remember
controller
how
too.
cool it was. But here's the thing, though, with the NES, I didn't even get a another one from the childhood one whenever we lost it when my parents divorced not long after that whole truck thing. I think it was actually in the process of happening during that, because the kids I was hanging out with was the guy that my mom ended up dating after they split up. I don't know where they were in the process then. I don't remember, but we moved so much, we lost like all of our stuff all the time. The NES, I don't know whatever happened to it, but I didn't even get another one until I think it was just before I started the Joypad Lad store, so that would have been like 5, 6 years ago. And I finally got one again and finally started getting some of the older games. And of course, got the NES Advantage controller. I had to get that. But it's probably, I think it's either third or, well, actually, at this point, I think it's like tied for fourth. I would put Super Nintendo as my number one. And I still
Mm.
remember, getting that on from Kmart layaway for like the longest time, and it was like the one time that we finally had the new system before like my cousin and uncle who always had everything, and we moved so much, we never kept a lot of our stuff, and we never had a lot of stuff. Like I remember one time, my grandparents sent us, me and my brother, a Spider-Man and a Wolverine Marvel figure, and those were literally the only two toys we had at the time. So we didn't have a lot of the time. So having that Super Nintendo was awesome, and just the games and everything on it itself makes it my favorite system. And then PS1 after that, because of just how much gaming changed because of that. A game we're going to talk about, Metal Gear Solid's one of my favorite games, but Final Fantasy VII and a lot of other cool RPGs and wrestling games started to evolve there as well. There's a lot of cool stuff, sports games as well.
It was a
Um,
giant leap.
yeah, it was a
From
huge leap,
going
and
from Super Nintendo to PlayStation 1 was just it
and
felt
it
incredible. Like,
yeah, it's crazy. It's hard for us now to like convey that to kids that grow up with 3D gaming, but having like no 3D gaming and then having it, it's like I mean, I think it's probably harder to express what it's like, even going from um, like black and white TV to color. I think it's even bigger of a leap than that. It's probably going from radio to TV. Just all of a sudden, like it's a whole different world. you had like the stories of the radio shows, but now you get to see everything else that goes on with it with the video. I think it's kind of the same with 3D because then it's like you can almost do anything you want to. You can go in all these different directions, camera angles. There's so many different things you could do than just like a flat screen with all pixelated graphics and the 3D renders and all that stuff that they were able to do. You know, like Final Fantasy VII relies on that so much to like make it look like it's, you know, it's all in the game, but it's basically just a picture you're walking on. That's
Yeah.
what's crazy. And as a kid, I mean, we didn't know any better. Just, oh, this game looks
Oh, it
awesome.
looked
I didn't know
amazing.
how they did it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it looked wonderful. It was yeah, my little mind was blown away when I first started playing PlayStation 1 because I was like you, I didn't have a lot when I was a kid, and I was always a system behind because we couldn't afford, the
Hmm.
newest thing. So when Super Nintendo was new and popular, I was playing NES games, you know? And then when 64 was finally coming around, that's finally when I got a Super Nintendo. Like, I didn't get a PlayStation 1 till like later in its lifespan. I think it was probably like 1999, maybe,
All
when I
right.
finally got a PlayStation 1, you know? But I had been living off of SNES and other stuff too.
Yeah.
So I can totally relate to everything you're saying there. So you mentioned Final Fantasy 7. So I gotta ask, is that one of your favorite games? Do you have?
Yeah. I was working on a list recently of like trying to do my top 25 games of all time, but I never finished it. Like I was going to write little blurbs on it. Um, but I did rank a lot of them. Final Fantasy VII for probably a lot of time was my number one game, but it kind of has always flip flopped between that and Chrono Trigger for Super Nintendo. So obviously, my two favorite systems, Super Nintendo and PlayStation One, my two favorite games come from those two consoles. So number one, I'd have to say is Chrono Trigger, and then number two would be Final Fantasy VII. I actually have right next to me on my desk. I still have the PC version, which I haven't played it that much, but I bought it way back in the '90s or whatever, and I still have it complete in box and everything. And then
Oh, that's
right
cool.
right in front of it, I have like those little cool figures that Square did. A lot of people I don't think know about them, but they made like little maybe like 2.5 inch figures that are based on the models from the game, not like the battle models, but you know the overworld chibi style models. And they didn't make every character. I don't know if they ever did another series of them, but I have those on display there as well, and then a bunch of other Chrono Trigger stuff, obviously, because that's my number one game. So those are my top two. Metal Gear Solid, I don't remember where I ranked it, but it's definitely in my top 25.
I put it in my top 5. Metal Gear
Yeah,
Solid, yeah, that's
yeah,
a
I can't
top 5
argue that.
game
Yeah.
for me. But we'll get into that. Let's talk about your store, man, your online shop. So, when when did you decide you wanted to do that? Like, what made you wanna get into like, obviously, you have a love for gaming and a passion for it, so what made you wanna do a store? Like,
Well, ever since I was a little kid, like for whatever reason, I had like an obsession with wanting to have my own store, like a physical store. I just thought it would be the coolest thing. I've helped out at like little stores before. My uncle used to work at a comic book shop, and we would end up, you know, when you're a kid, sometimes it's like you're just stuck. Okay, well, you have to be watched and you can't stay at home, so you're going to go with me to work and sit at the comic shop. So that would happen with me and my brother sometimes, and I'd help like put the boards into the bags and stuff like that. So when they had comics come in, they could just slide them right in there. So I just always wanted to have a physical store, which obviously I don't have, and I don't know if I ever will have. But that idea kind of eventually evolved into um, I've tried other similar things, but never like had a full on um, like online store until this. And I kind of didn't even really plan on doing this. I just had where our house needed some repairs and we took some money out on it. This was our house in California. So this was prior to 2020 because we first moved from there to Nevada during 2020. And then just last year moved from Nevada to around Houston area. Um, so that house, we needed to fix the roof and do some other stuff. And so I took money out and I'm like, well, I want to take some of this money to invest in something. And I was just asking people that I worked with, like ideas of what they think I should do. And then they're like, oh, well, you're into games and stuff. Because prior to that, I had a YouTube channel. Like I had like 3,000 subscribers at one time. I did like a lot of Minecraft stuff. I did some retro gaming as well. Did a lot of podcasts. I deleted all that like because I kept going back to it and getting frustrated by it not really growing. This was probably 2016 or so that I finally just gave up on it. So I had that history, and then I was into gaming, obviously. And one of my friends was like, "Well, why don't you start like a store, like selling stuff?" And I was like, "Oh, whatever, I'll try it." And I think I grabbed like maybe $300 out of the money I had, not even that much. And I just found something on OfferUp, and this was like 3 days after Christmas 2018. So it was 12/28/2018. It's going to be, it's like it's about to be like 4.5 years. The end of this year will be 5 years since I started that.
Nice.
And I met someone that, just a couple days after Christmas wanted to drive down. It was actually pretty far distance and meet up. And I bought all this stuff from him, a bunch of random games. And then a couple days later, I bought like a bunch of systems. And this was a totally different environment than it is now. Like you could get so much stuff easier than you can now. Like there's been a huge demand for a lot of retro gaming stuff, especially like the consoles and all that. Because back then I would grab so much stuff. I think one time I had like maybe 8 different GameCube bundles I was selling. Like now I haven't had a GameCube in like a long time to sell. But it's also changed back then. Uh, I was working full time. My wife wasn't. The kids weren't in school, and I could just work. And then I got off kind of early enough where I would meet people and buy stuff right after work, and then in my spare time or weekends or whatever, get stuff ready to sell. And I mostly would. I don't think I didn't really have where you could buy from my website at the time. I did OfferUp. I did a lot of OfferUp and Facebook and eBay, of course. And then later on, started using Mercari. But I just did it as like a side thing, just to see where it goes and try to make some money. And I kept it separate than everything else. I didn't really make any money off of it for the longest time. I just kept investing back into the business, and then it just evolved after that. And then once 2020 came and I was laid off, we moved to Nevada. I kind of did it as my full time thing, but even then, I didn't really um, like pay myself out of it because we were doing okay once we moved where we didn't really need to with my wife's job. And then just over time, been starting to slowly start making it my full time thing. Since we moved here, I've been able to only do this and make enough to keep getting by, and it keeps growing little by little. Even though it's harder to keep up with it now than it was before, it's been doing okay, and I'm just gonna keep trying to do it as long as I can.
So, what is it like trying to keep up with inventory? Because I mean, obviously, that's got to be probably the hardest
Yeah,
part, right? Is trying to find games to sell, at a reasonable price that want to, well, they'll move. So
yeah.
how what is that like for you?
It,
Like,
it
how does that
used
work?
it used to be a lot easier. Like I said, the biggest thing was buying like big bulk stuff where people are just getting rid of it, which you don't see a lot of that really anymore. Like you don't see an offer up listing where it's like, oh, I'm getting rid of all these games and it's a decent enough price, and then you meet them and then you give them the money and everyone's happy. There's so many people now buying and reselling stuff too, so it's harder to do that. I do have some people that will like trade in stuff with me with my shop. They'll
I think we
either do
know someone who might have done that.
yeah,
Look,
they'll either
it was me.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
so
Keep
it's
going.
you and I've you and a couple other people that have done that, and it'll be for like store credit or cash or whatever, and I give a decent rate compared to the other online stores as well. So
You do. I can totally vouch for that, people. If you got something you want to trade in, this is the guy you want to talk to. That's why I
so
brought him here.
yeah. Thanks. So yeah, that helps, and I wish I could do more of that. That's one of the benefits of if I did have a physical store, there would be a lot more of that, which would make it a lot easier. But there'd be a lot more money going towards the store and a lot more time going towards the store. And the way our life is set up right now with the 2 kids, it's like impossible. They would have right now, one's doing homeschool, and next year I don't know if we have to decide if we're going to both do homeschool for them, or if we want to send them to regular school. We're kind of on the fence, really. We're not sure what we want to do, and I don't mind just doing the store online, but it is harder, of course, to get stuff, and I have to either just have people come to me, or I have to look for big bundles, especially because I have a pretty solid disc repair machine. A lot of times I would just buy discs that are kind of scratched up, and I could save most of them and resell them, uh, and still make some good money. But there's been some other stuff, and like I've been selling comics and stuff like that. But that's because my uncle and cousin just wanted to sell me like their whole collection of things, and they had like all these figures and comics. And my cousin had a ton of games, but a lot of those I've already sold off a while ago. But yeah, I'm just kind of doing what I can. I have the eBay and the other stores, so I'm kind of reconfiguring the website right now to try to make it more focused on just gaming stuff again, and moving a lot of that extra stuff to eBay and Mercari and OfferUp or whatever. And I do gotta try to figure out how I can go look for more stuff again, or find stuff online. But I have so much stuff piled up from the last couple years. There's still stuff I haven't got to that's gaming related, that's in boxes in the garage, and there's stuff that's not gaming related. There's a ton of that still to sell. So I've just kind of been trying to keep that going to keep money coming in. And I am getting to the point again where I need to start buying some more stuff. I did have a little bit of a trade in recently, and that gave me a few items. But the thing is too, like, it's not, I mean, I want the store to be like this cool thing where I have like a lot of the stuff people are looking for, but it's kind of hard to do that with my situation. And the store at joypadlad.com doesn't really get a ton of sales. Maybe people think it does more than it does. It's only about, like, I think a couple a couple sales on average, maybe less than two on average a week. So I don't get a lot of orders through my website. Most of my sales are still on eBay and Mercari and other places, and that's just everything. That's not just gaming stuff. So I kind of just have to focus on that and keeping that going. And I don't really know what I could do to get people to buy more from the site. Obviously, inventory would help, but advertising too. I got to figure out a better way to advertise
Motion.
that's worth the money. It's hard. Yeah, I've tried different things, and it's kind of hard to keep that consistent.
Well, for inventory, if I can make a suggestion, you live in the Houston area now, and we have an abundance flea market where you can get some inventory for real cheap. So I highly recommend checking those out. Uh, there's a big one up there on the north side. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. I'll have to send you the info, but definitely a place you'd want to check out, man. Because well, it's fun, first of all. Like, you
Hmm.
can take the family and you can go around, and it's totally a good time, man. They have live music. It's great. And but yeah, there's all kinds of people selling stuff there that and they let it go for real cheap. It's really great. But yeah, man, just promoting. I mean, I see that's how I learned about you, was from Twitter. I saw you there, and then I checked out your store and liked what I saw, and I saw you did trade-ins and gave me a really good deal. So I really like what you're doing. Uh, definitely got my business.
Yeah, thanks,
But
appreciate it.
so
It's been yeah, it's been hard just because of our schedule. Because like I said, with the kids and my wife working at night, and she sleeps a lot during the day, and we don't have it's hard to line up days off to go do stuff like that. So yeah, it'd definitely be something I'd have to plan out ahead of time and try to do, which I'm gonna need to do to keep getting more gaming inventory in. But yeah, Twitter has been huge for my business for advertising, and I've got a lot of sales through there. So that's why I'm still on there, because there's a lot of cool people, and it's actually been helping my business. So why not? I've tried like Facebook ads and stuff, and it's just pointless and worthless. Even Google ads didn't really do much. I do get a few random sales from Google searches, but not that often. But Twitter's been like number one. I even started the sticker shop on Etsy just last September, and that's been doing really well. Where I
yeah, I wanted to
sticker
ask
stuff.
about that actually because you make some really awesome stickers. Like, like man, like how do you come up with those ideas? You just make what you like, or
Well, I first started off doing them at the beginning of last year when I tried to do. I mean, I've tried so many things where it's like, oh, I got this goal I'm gonna do, and then like the world falls apart, and then it doesn't work out. I mean, for example, I was like 2020, the year 2020. It sounds so cool. It's gonna be a cool year. It's like a sci-fi year. You know, they use that year for everything, and I'm like 2020. Okay, I'm gonna do 20 cool things with my business, and I'm going to do 20 cool things um, around the house to get the house fixed up. And I got this whole list, and I'm like, okay, let's go. And they're like, okay, well the world's shutting down. I'm like, oh, okay, well I guess that's not going to work out. And then last year I was like, well, I'm going to do this thing where I want to beat because I don't play games enough because I'm always so busy, and I like hate like I it's hard for me to give myself a break because I feel like I'm not doing enough. So I was like, well, I'm going to force myself to play games. So I'm going to try to beat one game on every single system that I own. And I did the Twitter polls, and people voted for which game I had to beat. So then I got the idea. I'm like, oh, cool. I'm going to make a sticker set for each game that I beat too. And I beat like a few games. There was Final Fantasy VI. And these were all games that I never beat before. I was trying to, beat games that I never beat. So Super Mario Sunshine, which I played a lot of but never beat. Final Fantasy VI, I never played and finally beat it. X-Men Legends, I played a lot of but never beat. Actually, I think I might have beat it before because once I got to the end, I was like, "Wait, did I beat this before?" I didn't have a save of it, but I was like, "Oh, maybe I already beat this because this kind of seems familiar." But there was that, and Sonic, the original Sonic, I never beat because I never owned a Genesis until just a few years ago too, right before I started the business.
right?
So I never really played those games that much. So I beat that as well. There was a few games, and I have this thing on the website where I made like a club membership because I wanted to do something that was cool and kind of like retro, like how you would sign up for a Nintendo club membership, or you would have like your membership card at like Blockbuster or something. So I wanted to do something cool like that, just a little simple laminated card. So I did the memberships on the website, and they don't really get you anything, but they don't really cost you anything because you pay $20, but you get your $20 in a gift card. So you're just buying a gift card, and then you get like a badge, a magnet that's like a member. They're both membership designs, and then you get a laminated membership card with a number and a date. And then you also get some cool stickers as well. And I just made like these certificates that I sent out to people as well. So with these memberships, I was like, okay, well, these are going to be the die-hard customers, so I'll send them some benefits. And I just was like, okay, well, if you signed up for a membership, I'm going to send you these sticker sets every time I beat a game too. So I started doing that, and then of course, in the middle of the year, things changed, and we're like, okay, well, I guess we're gonna have to move, and we're gonna sell our house in California, and we're gonna figure out how to move somewhere. I don't know where. My wife was like, maybe Vegas. I'm like, no, I don't want to be permanently in Nevada. That was never the point of it. And I was like, well, let's try Texas or Tennessee maybe because they seem good from what we've looked into and heard from people that we know that have been in those areas. And then I was like, well, what about like Houston area because you know it's Texas obviously, but also there's like a lot of people that I've met online that are all cool and related, like even customers like you as well, like because I knew you before I moved, and I was like, there's all these cool
Yeah,
people that at least I know some people, and even if they're just customers or whatever, or that we're not really friends yet, or maybe we are, at least there's something out there, instead of just going out somewhere where we don't really know anyone at all. And so we did it. It worked out, and then we found a church just down the road we started going to, which was cool because now we have all these other people as support that we didn't have because we have no family out here. So they invited us to Thanksgiving and all kinds of stuff. So it's kind of been good. We settled in pretty good, but it was kind of stressful uh, in the middle of the year there for a while, trying to figure out how we're going to do it, and having to fly out here to look at the house and then fly back, and it wasn't that easy, but it worked out. And that's I know it's a long story, but that's kind of how I started doing the sticker sets was with that. And then I just started doing them. I was like, well, start of the year this year, let's do a new one every Saturday because they've been doing pretty good on Etsy, and I need other ways to keep making money if I can't always get games all the time to sell. And so I just decided to do that, and I had like a kind of a list or an idea of games that I thought would be good to do a set out of, and I just rip the graphics, or I find some of them online um, if I don't need to, or can't rip them myself. I do kind of like a mixture of both. It depends, because sometimes you'll find like a sprite sheet and they'll separate all the assets, and I'm like, no, I don't really. I want the guy doing this, and it's hard to piece it together. I want it accurate to the game, so I'll play the game and I'll get a screenshot and I'll cut it out. Like for some arcade games, it's harder to rip sprites, so you don't find a lot of sprite sheets online. So I had to do like for WrestleFest and WWF Superstars, I had to play the games and just be like playing against a Ultimate Warrior or something, for example, and I'm like beating him up, and I'm like, okay, now do your taunt, do your pose, come on, because like the computer would just randomly do those. You can't control it. I'm like, okay, cool, pause it. Okay, I got it, good. So I just started doing those, and I have this printer that I bought back in Nevada that I was like, I was like, I don't even know if I had an idea. I think at first I was making cards. I made like a wrestling card set that I sold and some other stuff. And then I was like, well, I'll make stickers with it too, because it's like this really high end printer. It's a Canon 300. I don't remember what else like the rest of the name is, but it was like almost $1,000 when I got it.
Ooh,
And
fancy.
yeah, it's like
Mhm.
it's a heavy, bulky. It's like a big duffel bag almost. It's like, imagine a duffel bag, a heavy duffel bag, like with a dead body in it. That's how heavy it is. Um,
Wow.
what's the movie? Eight heads in a duffel bag or something?
I
Yeah,
was just thinking of that.
imagine
That's so funny.
imagine
I was just thinking of that
that's
movie.
that's what it looks and feels like. It's like big, black, and bulbous like that, and heavy. So yeah, it's really really good quality. And then I got one of those like Cameo uh was it Silhouette? Yeah, Cameo Silhouette cutters. And so I'd have to get the images, resize them to a point that I'm happy with. Usually it's like I think 200 times the size of the sprite in the game. Sometimes less, because sometimes the sprites are too big. You don't want to have like this giant massive sticker of like a little looking guy, but just the game itself had bigger sprites sometimes. So I kind of have to find the good balance, and then I got to play Tetris and try to fit the stickers together on one sheet, like an 8 by 11, on my editing software, and I have to add like a border so I know that where it cuts around, they're not going to cut into each other. And sometimes it'll take hours and days even to like those Mario sets that I did, because there's so many little pieces and stuff, and then just
Yeah.
having to try to decide, okay, what am I going to include and what am I not going to include, and what will actually fit as well. And it's been kind of a challenge, but it's been fun, and it's done pretty well. And for the most part, it's just taking sprites from old games and doing that. I have like a couple where I took the like the art from the games. I kind of prefer doing the sprites because it's something different, and it's um I don't know. I just like it better. I think it's cooler because there's not a lot of stuff like that you see, especially like obscure games. Like for example, like the giant Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VI sticker sets that I did, and even a little Secret of Evermore and Illusion of Gaia ones. Um,
Yeah,
it's
those are
just cool
really
to
great.
yeah, it's just cool to have something unique. And now more recently, I started uh, going off of requests from. I started a Patreon at the start of this year, something new I wanted to try, and people can sign up on there for either like a smaller one sheet sticker set a month, or a double sized, 2 sheet sticker set. So every month for like $5 off the normal price, they would get, one of those that they choose from the whole archive of sets I've made. And then every week I'm making a new one, so they can pick one of those as well, or just like a mystery pack of stickers. And then I also put where they can put requests. And right now I only have three patrons on there, so I'm not really doing polls. I'm just saying, hey, what do you want to see made? All three people on there, and then I just kind of rotate off of their requests based on what I think will work and that I can make within that time frame. Because sometimes there's ones where it's like, yeah, I don't know how that's going to work out, or whatever. So I'll do this other one that's a little bit easier. For example, like since they're on white sheets and I do the white border around them, a lot of Nintendo games, the characters don't have like outlines on them. So if they have like white, it'll just blend in to the white sticker outline. So it'll just look like crap. So I started changing some of those. Like, for example, the first one that pops into my head is the little flying guys in Mario 2 with the little pitchforks. I forget what they're called. Um, but they have like a white pitchfork, and it would be nothing on the sticker. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
you just see a line through them. So I found like a really light shade of gray that'll still print. Because sometimes if I go too close to white, it won't print. It'll just look like it's white when it comes out, or I don't even know if it even prints it at all. So I got like a really light shade of gray. So that's like the only changes I'll make, and usually that's like sweat coming off of someone's head, like King Hippo in the Punch Out set that I did. So little tweaks like that I'll make. And then I've done some custom stickers like sprite edits and stuff, but I've mostly just done those for when I did like mystery boxes where it was like a bunch of stickers, and I made some cards and bookmarks and other cool stuff. But right now I've been keeping up since the start of the year. I don't really know how many weeks it's been, but every week, every Saturday, I've been doing a new sticker set. And then just this last week, even with everything going on, I was able to push one out, and I did the. A lot of people don't know about this game, but Super Back to the Future Part Two. It was only in Japan for whatever reason. I guess probably because it was
It's
so
the
late.
only good Back to the Future game.
Yeah, right. I mean,
Yeah.
I played that Nintendo one so much as a kid because like it was different when you're a kid. You're like, it's Back to the Future. I have to play it. I love the movie. It's like this game sucks, but I have to play it. Like for
Yeah.
whatever reason, you just still played them. And
We played what we had. That's
yeah,
what, here's what it is. Here's what you get. Take it and like it.
exactly. With that stupid where you're like walking, and then like you can pick up, you got to watch out for the bees, and then you get the bowling ball and you can throw that at people, and for whatever reason, and then you can skateboard sometimes. Like I don't even think I ever got past the part where you go into like the saloon or whatever, or the diner, and you have to like throw mugs at them. Like I can even beat that part. But this one, yeah, this one's like the only good, at least retro one. I heard the more recent one that they did, like on PS3, I think that era. I heard that one was good, but I've never played it. But this one, I've only played a little bit of it, but I remembered it from a while back, and I looked into it, and it wasn't released until 1993, and the movie came out in like '89. So, and the Super
Yeah.
Nintendo was kind of winding down. I mean, not totally winding down, but by the time it would get moved over to the U.S., if they did, the movie's already years old, and the Super Nintendo's about to move on to the Nintendo 64. So that's my guess why. But still, for me, it's weird. I don't know why they even made the game in Japan, especially in 1993. That's weird, but it's cool, and the graphics are pretty cool in that game. It's got a unique look, so I was able to
Yeah.
make one of those sets I just released today when we're recording this on Saturday.
So let's tell our listeners where they can find your shop, and then let's jump into some Metal Gear.
All right. So yeah, just go to joypadlad.com. That's where you can find my main store. And if you want to go find like the Etsy sticker shop or even anywhere else I sell, I have them all linked at the bottom. If you scroll all the way to the footer, you can see my links to eBay and Mercari and everything else, social media as well. So that's the easiest way.
And go get you one of those $20 memberships because it's
Yep.
totally worth it.
There's still a couple available. You get it's just buying a $20 gift card. You get all those things I mentioned earlier, a cool membership card, a membership certificate, a few other things, and anytime there's other random benefits, like I said, sticker sets sometimes, discounts sometimes, once a month, something new. So there's a benefit to it, and it never ends. It's lifetime.
Awesome.
Right on, man. All right, you guys ready to jump into Metal Gear Solid for the PlayStation?
Yep. Wait, hold on a second. Oh, never mind. Okay, it was just a box. Don't worry about it. Something was some. I thought something was moving behind me.
Was it Snake? Is he in the box?
There's a snake in a box. Yeah, I mean, you got to watch out for that here.
We do.
Luckily, I haven't encountered any yet. Any major reptilians? Just a few little tiny frogs. That's it.
Good, good. All right, let's get into it. So, Metal Gear Solid, published by Konami for the PlayStation in 1998. Written, directed, produced by, and I'm gonna butcher his first name because I'm not really sure how do you say it. How do you say it, Nick? Is it Hideo? Hideo?
Hideo Kojima?
Well, yeah, we know Kojima. Everybody knows the Kojima part, but how do you say his first name properly?
It's Hideo, right?
Hideo.
I'd have to look at the spelling, but yeah.
Hideo. It's Hideo. Hideo. Anyways, this is his baby. I think everybody knows
Hideo.
that. This game is so legendary. I mean, it's it's one of
Uh,
my favorites of all time.
a little indie game.
A little indie game. Yeah. Uh, so I'm gonna try something a little new on today's show. We're gonna try a little bit called "Did You Know?" And this is where I'm just gonna bring up some interesting little facts about the game that we're covering each month. So we're gonna try this new. I've actually got someone working on a jingle for us, Nick. So that'll
What?
be more editing for you. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Hopefully he comes through with that. Uh, but for now, no jingle. But let's try this, huh? Okay. So, did you know? Are y'all ready?
Yeah,
Number
I think so.
one. All right. Did you know that Metal Gear was actually planned for the 3DO interactive multiplayer, but it was discontinued before the game was ever finished or completed, so they moved it over to PlayStation.
Oh, thankfully.
Okay.
Right? Can you
I mean, I
imagine if
have a
it did come
3DO. I
out
could
on?
play it. It'd be fine.
Yeah, you're the only one.
Yeah.
My cousin actually, when 3DO was like just getting started, he's like, "Oh, I want to get a 3DO because they have Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo on there." And like I said before, we were huge on that on all the Street Fighter 2 games. And luckily his stepdad convinced him no, get a PlayStation 1 because I mean, obviously it would have been cool to have it, all these years later, but
Yeah.
we would have missed out on so much of the PlayStation 1
Yeah, that
before he ever got one.
Hey,
would
I
have
mean,
been
the
a
3DO
huge
spec
mistake.
wise is actually not a bad console for when it came out. It was just unfortunately didn't have the resources to make decent games.
And wasn't
Yeah.
it also, like, ridiculously expensive?
It was a bit more expensive, yeah, because
Yeah.
they they like had third parties produce the console. They just licensed the console. It was
Oh
weird.
yeah.
That's why there's like
Eh,
3 or 4 different manufacturers that actually make 3DOs. Yeah, so
alright,
that's why
well,
it was confusing and stuff too for people.
getting a lot of information in the first "Did you know?" Alright, let's get back to it. Did you know that Snake's body is based off of John Claude Van Damme, while his face is based off of Christopher Walken?
Well, I
The
never heard
programmers
that.
did that. Yep, yep. Apparently, they modeled his body in the game after John Claude Van Damme, but decided to model his face after Christopher Walken. And
Interesting.
I don't know, yeah. Interesting choice with Christopher Walken. Uh, all right, so did you know that Kojima used Legos and toys to map out areas of the game so he could see what the camera angles would look like?
No, but that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's a good
That is
idea.
pretty cool, right? I could just see him, just like playing with the Legos and
I just
building
want to
all
see
the
like
different areas,
I want to see like a stop motion of that now.
right? There's got to be some pictures of that. Like somebody took pictures of that somewhere. All right. So, did you know that the cardboard box is a way of fast traveling in the game? No?
Purposely or by glitches?
No, purposely. If you get in, you notice you get cardboard box A in one area, in another
Mm-hmm.
area you get
Mhm.
cardboard box B. If you get in the back of a truck and you're inside and you put the box on, it takes you back to the area where you found the box.
Oh yeah, I think I remember that now. Like I forgot
Uh,
about that.
Yeah. Well,
that's definitely a throwback to Metal Gear for the MSX.
yes. Speaking of, that brings us to the next one. One last one. Did you know that Kojima had nothing to do with the US NES games of Metal Gear? The two that we got here in the States for the NES, he
Well,
had nothing to do with those. They took his games and they like butchered them and like redid the levels completely.
Oh
change
yeah.
everything. Like those were not
It's
even
a
his
garbage
games.
port. Yeah. No, it's his stuff was on the MSX and it was fantastic.
So were those two on the NES supposed to be like kind of trying to adapt those MSX games, or
Yeah,
totally
they were
different?
ports
Oh, okay.
of the MX, but they were very poorly done.
And I tried to
Very
play.
poor.
I tried to play like a little of them. Like I never really played them that much, but I tried to play a little bit of the NS game, and I feel asleep.
Yeah. They're just
I
like
feel
it's
asleep.
so janky compared to the MSX version too. If you ever get a chance, like definitely play the MSS.
I got it. Yeah, I only recently discovered them. I saw a video about it. Like I don't know, maybe in the last few years. I didn't even know those existed.
It's
If
it's one of
you
those PC game consoles that I really want to get still.
if you can get your hands on the Metal Gear HD collection, you can play the original version, the
Oh,
correct
cool.
version of Metal Gear. They're available on that.
I probably have that. I just never have played it because like that was
Yeah,
back when I was buying a ton of those collections on PS3. If that's the one that it's on. Um,
yeah, it's on PS3.
yeah, I just don't think I've ever played it
Hmm.
because I got every time you get one of those, it's like, oh, cool. Wait, why is Metal Gear Solid One not on here? But like, okay,
Yeah,
well,
that was really disappointing. Like I was working at GameStop when that collection came out, and I was so excited. I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be great. This is so cool." And then I look and I see, I'm like, "Wait, why
Y-
not
y-
the first one? Like that's the best one."
yeah.
You
If you
know?
get your hands on the thing called the internet, you could also download it via you know the internet and
Yeah,
play
yeah.
it on a
Wait, they have
emulator.
the internet on computers now?
They do.
You
Oh,
can
okay.
you can do that. That's possible. But there's also people like me who
Wants
can't.
to play the emulated version on on a console instead.
Hey, they did good though with that one on the
Oh,
HD
sure.
collection. It's really nice, and you can
Just
save it and
mhm.
stuff. All right, man. Let's get into this. As you know, uh, well, unless it's your first time listening, then you probably don't know. We talk about the music, the graphics, and the gameplay of the game. And when we try to play these games, we don't use cheat codes, we don't use guides. But with this particular game, me and Nick have both played this, I don't know, probably 100 times at least
Yeah.
between the two of us and beaten it a million times. So, uh, yeah, but that's how we do things. So let's get into it. First, with the music. Nick, give me your opinion, man. How do you feel about the music with Metal Gear Solid?
I mean, it's pretty iconic. I mean, just even like the intro and everything's great. Sound effect design, I mean, lives in everyone's, memory forever being spotted by a guard. So, I mean,
Yeah.
great.
How many people use the notification? What's the calm thing?
Mm-hmm.
The noise
Yep.
that it makes. I use
That in
that
the
for my
communicator.
text messages. On my phone.
Mm-hmm.
Use that noise.
And then, I mean, and the voice acting is also fantastic. And just coming to when you start the game up, it is just like a movie intro. It's very, very good. It's, it's crazy for the time.
Yeah, it's really something. How about you, Gary? How do you feel about the music with the
Yeah.
Metal Gear Solid?
It like he said, it's like one of the first games that really felt like a movie without being a movie. Because now these days, like so many games try to be a movie and they're more movie than game. And
Hmm.
I mean, even a lot of the Metal Gear Solid games have, like the ones that I've played at least, have a lot more cutscenes than I remember, at least from the PS1 version. And but the soundtrack and all that, like you said, and just like when the guards catch you and then it starts that intense music and you start trying to hide and run away, like everything just fits perfectly. And even like you said, the voice acting's perfect for a game that you spend a lot of time just like sitting there watching a black screen with two little pictures that barely move, and then they're talking like it's engaging because of the voice acting. And it's crazy that these days no one would be able to get away with something like that for the cutscenes or whatever. For the most part, that's what they are, is those little radio communications, but it just works perfectly.
Yeah, he did such a good job. Kojima had his hand in everything in this game. That's why I say it's his baby. I mean, even the music, I believe he did that at his house with his team. There was only like 20 people that worked on this game, and what they came up with is just amazing. Like,
Hmm.
and like you guys both said, like it's iconic music. It's not the type of music that like some games where I could listen to it though in the car,
Yeah.
you know. Like there's a lot of tunes like that,
I'm
dude. That I'll listen to it
it's
in
a
the
little
car because
intense
it
for
sounds
car
great.
driving.
Yeah, but for it's not car music, but for the game, it really sets the tone. It creates an atmosphere. You can get lost in this game, man. I had so much fun revisiting it and just turning off the lights, sitting in the dark and just falling into this one deep. It's so good, man. So yeah, we all agree. The music, fantastic. Now let's talk about the graphics. So Nick, how you feeling about these graphics for Metal
I
Gear Solid?
mean, again, for the time, they're fantastic. I mean, it's still, PlayStation, you get the shimmer and all that other fun stuff, but the ability to go from top down to first person, uh, the environments are all very, very well done. Boss fights, I mean, come on, like everything in that whole game is just really well thought out, especially for uh getting the angles and stuff for the camera. Like you were saying, how they were building them in Legos just to make sure it looked, the way it looked, and they used, I think, the graphics to to their strength in that game.
Yeah, it's really quite something for the time. Like, I don't really
Come on, the
can't
snow
think of.
footsteps.
Yeah,
First
I
time I
know,
saw
right?
that, I was like, "What the?"
And the fact that the guards could see him,
Hmm.
like that was the details, man. They really got it with the details.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
yeah, Gary, tell us what you think about the graphics with this
Yeah,
one.
I mean, I probably if you went back and looked at it now, the one thing you would say is like how there's like no emotion on their faces. Like that's like the
Yeah.
only drawback, um but overall like you said, compared to other PS1 games, there there's enough detail without it being like too jaggedy and janky like some of the games, like for example, I always think of Final Fantasy 8 and how they tried to make the models more advanced from Final Fantasy 7, and there's just so many spikes and everything everywhere. And also Driver on PS1, where whenever you got like rammed by someone when you're driving the car, it looks like Doritos are flying off your car.
Yeah.
so 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 they didn't make it too blocky, they didn't make it look too sharp. And even though like there's no real emotion on the faces of the characters, everything looks great. Like the scenery and how much variation there is too. Like you said, the snow area, the giant tower with the sniper, across the bridge. There's all these different varying environments, and everything feels new and different, like from each chapter of the game, and it all looks great. You never get like taken out of it. Like I said, if you look back on it these days, that's probably like the only thing you would notice is like the blank faces. It kind of like how if you look back on Max Payne, where he's got that weird freakish looking face the whole game.
Yeah.
That's the only thing you would notice these days. Um, but back then, of course, you play the game on a CRT, it kind of smooths it out a bit. And that's the thing it's hard to convey to people that are looking back on older games now is like they'll play, like, for example, Donkey Kong Country on a big, huge display, and the pre rendered graphics look horrible that sized up that much. But if you had it on a CRT where it fuzzes it just a little bit, it looks like 3D almost. You think it's a 3D game, like a side scrolling 3D game, the characters. So back then at the time, like you said, it was miles ahead of most PS1 games. Like even a lot of the visuals were better than some of the Final Fantasy games, which were like up and near the top in a lot of respects.
Yeah, I'm so impressed with the details on the game. Like if you go through, the offices, you can look at the desk and like each desk looks different. Like they really took their time and I mean, I don't know, we can't praise it enough, really. I mean, can we? Yeah, I mean, other than the faces looking weird, which they totally do. It's funny. But I mean, what can we say? It looked great at the time. It was it was ahead of its time. You
Yeah.
I
know,
mean, that's what it reviewed, amazingly at the time also. So, and it's a cult classic or it's not even a cult classic. It is a classic for a reason.
over 7 million copies of this game
Mm.
were sold, and that's a lot of copies in 1998.
Yeah.
Um,
So let's get into my favorite part, the gameplay. Nick, give me a rundown of how you feel about the gameplay. Uh,
I'm the first time I ever actually played it was, if anyone remembers, those Pizza Hut demo discs back in the day.
Oh wow.
Uh, I I got to experience the first chapter over and over again. I was super uh I don't know, impressed and like dumbfounded by again how the guards would chase you and see your footprints and learning how to hide, and that was really kind of like the first stealth game I think I ever played. But have getting the full version of it, the boss fights are just another great addition. Everyone having their little weaknesses and interesting things like reading your memory card and stuff like that. Just like, what? This is crazy. What's going on? Uh, and of course, it was at the Nikita rocket launcher, one of my favorite. I was always wondered how the rockets could fly so slow, but whatever.
yeah, they fly
They're
enough
like
for you to turn
little,
corners, and
right.
you can do those
Uh,
little circles so you can see. Yeah.
Yep. I was like, man, that's a really fancy rocket. But I get just again one of my favorite types of gameplay style, and they did it just perfectly.
All right, man. How about you, Gary? What's your take on the gameplay for Metal Gear?
Yeah. Most of what he said, I pretty much have the same experience. I don't know if I played it on a demo disc first. I might have, but I do remember renting it a lot. Probably a couple times at first before I finally bought it. And yeah, there's so much variation to the gameplay with the boss fights. That's what's cool. And then just the way you play the game normally. I also never really played a stealth game that I remember prior to that. And what's cool about it is how you have multiple ways to tackle like a room when you get in there. Sometimes you could just kind of bide your time, watch the patterns, and just kind of sneak past the guys and not even really do much. Sometimes you have to make a distraction or crawl under something or go up into a duct, or sometimes you just distract them, come around them, and just kill them from there. Like, what's cool is even when you get caught, it's not like it's just, oh, game over, you got caught. Sometimes I don't know if they did it in that game where it's just like you have to get through an area without being caught. I know some games will do that. I don't remember if they had any parts like that in Metal Gear Solid, but I know for the most part, you just kind of, okay, well, now I got to hide and get away from these guys, or just fight my way through it. It really was like an action movie. It kind of reminds you a lot of Die Hard, where it's like there's parts of the movie where
Hmm.
he is kind of like sneaking around and then he makes a quick kill, and then there's a part where it's like, oh crap, they found me, so now I gotta fight my way out of it. It really captured that, which was great. That action movie vibe, and all the characters were unique, and Snake was a badass, and there was it just everything fit perfectly with the gameplay too, where it felt like you weren't limited. There was a lot you can do to try to get out of a situation, and then you would pick up different tools along the way. Like that rocket thing. I remember you had to like shoot it down the hallways and turn it around. It had to be some kind of fancy like I don't know. I don't know what kind of technology they had there, but I'm sure we'll figure it out soon because they've predicted so much other stuff about the political landscape through those games. So maybe they'll get the technology right too. So who knows?
Well, I
Maybe
guess
maybe.
technically they do with the drones. You
Well,
know.
yeah, that's pretty much, yeah. It's similar. Maybe it was like a drone rocket or something, and then just the fire shooting off it was just like some kind of illusion. It was CGI.
They didn't know what drones were at the time. They just
Yeah,
kind of had the same concept, so they didn't think of how to make it work, but it worked.
yeah.
It just works. uh, yeah. So gameplay for me. So like Nick, the first time I played this game was on a demo disc. So like I told this story before how my brother came home with a PlayStation 1, and like the first couple games I played were Road Rash and Resident Evil 2. Like those were the first games that I got to try on PlayStation. and we had the demo disc that had Metal Gear Solid. So, like you, I got to play through the first chapter of it 100 times. I just thought it was the coolest game ever. Then finally, like I said, I believe it was 1999. My dad finally got me a PlayStation One for Christmas, and the two games that I got were Final Fantasy VII and Metal Gear Solid, and I was ecstatic. The only problem was he didn't get me a memory card,
Yeah.
Oh,
so he didn't know, man. He didn't know. So 2 weeks, I had to wait 2 weeks to get a memory card,
It's
and
crazy.
so
It's crazy how that the memory card thing, like it was the new thing then, and then within what 2 generations, because PS1 and PS2, and then there was no memory cards really anymore
yeah,
after
then they
that.
were gone. Yeah,
It's
came
crazy.
Infernal after that. So
I still miss VMUs though.
yeah. So, yeah, that was when I got this game finally. Yeah, I played it a lot. Like this became one of my favorite games of all time. It still is. I played through it for the podcast. I did beat it once. I was trying to beat it 3 times because you can get, if it's all about the torture scene with Ocelot. So if you
Yep.
survive the torture, Meryl will live. You get the bandana, and then you get the good ending. If you fail on that part, then he kills Meryl. You get the camouflage armor at the end, or you know, it's like the same as the ninja in the thing. Uh, and then, yeah, and then you get the bad ending. The doctor guy, Otacon, he's the one who drives you out in the jeep at the end. So
Hmm.
I got the bad ending.
As everyone
Yeah,
did.
I couldn't survive the torture thing. I guess I'm just getting too old. I used to be able to do that part, like, pretty easily, because it's just pushing the button as fast as you can, you know? But, I couldn't keep up this time. So bad ending for me. I didn't have time to run through it again, unfortunately. I wanted to, because if you beat it the second time and you play through it again the third time, when you go up in the elevator, you change into a tuxedo and you look very James Bond. It's very cool. But uh so I'll have to try that again. But everything about this game is great. But really I just want to talk about probably the most important thing in the game to me, and that's the boss battle with Psycho Mantis. Uh, I don't think there's another boss battle that compares to what that one is. I mean, the rest of the game is cool. The boss battles in the game are cool, but that particular one was very mind blowing back then. The reading off the memory card. He tells you to put the controller down on the ground, and if you have the DualShock controller, it vibrates and moves. Uh, Just I don't remember another game like that where they did that, where they broke that fourth wall, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And that's what it felt like with Psycho Mantis, and I think that's what really that particular part in the game is what takes it over the edge and makes this game so epic to me, is that particular battle.
Yeah, and
Because even after
that's still one of the most iconic things when people talk about the game is they bring up that boss fight, and other games have tried to do like fourth wall breaking, but it's hard to do that the way Metal Gear Solid has and still keep you immersed in the game at the same time. It's weird. It's hard to explain, but you don't feel like you're taking so much out of the game because it's so much fourth wall breaking all the time or something cheesy. It kind of freaks you out and makes you more enthralled. It's weird.
it does. Yeah, exactly. And then even after like that whole intro, he reads off your memory card, and then like he judges you by how many times you saved the game and how many times you've been spotted. And then when the battle actually starts, you the screen goes black and you just see Hideo up in the corner, up in green. And like I forgot about that part, as a kid. And so for a second there I was like, oh god, my PlayStation just broke. Like, what just happened? Then it went back and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Like he's screwing with me. Like, and then, for those who don't, I mean, it's a 25-year-old game or something now, so no spoilers, but you have to, plug your controller into port 2 to
Hmm.
beat Psycho Mantis, and like who thought of that? Like that's just I don't know. That's such a good idea. Like to make you have to do something like that.
Yeah,
So
I mean, the only game that I can think of that has anything similar to that is like is it Doki Doki Panic? Is that what it's called? Um, for PC anymore. Um, where you actually have to like, uh, it's spoilers. I guess like so part of the game where you actually have to like close the game and delete like your saves and stuff. It's weird, because
What?
it's taking over. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great story based game. Highly recommend. It's like a one of those dating, you know, sim kind of things, but it's more of a horror game as you get into it. It is really fun.
that sounds interesting. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah,
Because
you
I
can play
like
it on
that
that
sort of
laptop.
thing. Yeah.
Yep. No,
All right.
but yeah, I agree. Very unique, and that's why it's memorable as well.
Right, man. So, any final thoughts for you, Nick, on Metal Gear Solid?
Now, if you haven't played it, play it. That's basically it. It's a classic for a reason.
Yeah, definitely play it. How about you, Gary? Any final thoughts or comments on Metal Gear that you'd like to share?
Not much. Just if you haven't played the first one, like you said, definitely recommend playing it. I haven't been able to get into the series as much after the first one. To me, it seems like it hasn't captured that same magic. So I definitely recommend checking out the first if you haven't. I do have a confession to make, though. I've never actually beat the game. Like when I was a kid, I got to the Metal Gear fight, and then I just kept dying, and then I moved on to something else. And I've played it a few times since then, but I never got that far into it. I gotta go back and beat it myself. Actually,
You should. You should.
I don't.
It's a
I
good
think I
thing.
still have my save from like 25 years ago too. So
That's awesome.
I don't
Hey,
remember if I'm gonna get the good or bad ending though. I guess I should
got some
play it and
unfinished
get
business.
surprised.
And surprisingly, it's
There you
not
go.
even a very long game. It's only got about 6 hours of gameplay, so
Yeah, that's what I
16
was
Yeah,
hearing.
hours.
I don't know. I remember playing it. I remember playing it so much, probably because I was just looking around and trying to
Yeah,
like discover every little thing.
that is
I'd
a
be
good
interested
thing.
to look back at my save time on there.
That is a good thing about this game is, you can play through it quick like that, or you can just take your time and
Hmm.
go explore. And there's lots to find. Like there's lots of secrets in this game for you to find. So if this is something you haven't played, then it's something should be required. Like this is required gaming for gamers.
yeah,
This is
100%.
one of those games that just everybody needs to try it. And fortunately, this game is not plagued by the extreme prices. There's a lot of copies made, so you can get a decent copy for like 25, $30. You know, if you want to go the original route, like I like to do.
Yeah.
I
Do they
think I
have it
own.
on? Do you know if they have it like on PS4 or PS5 to purchase?
I have not seen it available on PS4 or PS5 network. There is the PlayStation One Mini, but that's the
Oh yeah.
PAL version, and nobody wants the PAL version. Like, it's
Yeah.
it's not good. It's edited. It's just it's the. But so yeah, so that's the best way, really, as to me, just get the original. You know,
And I mean, at least with that on PS1, if you get a PS, you don't have to have a PS1. You could have a PS2 or a PS3 and still play it. A lot of people don't even remember that you can play PS1 games on the PS3 because remember they took away the PS2 backwards compatibility
yeah,
with the later models, but you could still always play the PS1 games. And for whatever reason, I have no idea why they wouldn't keep it with PS4 and PS5, but all you got to do is get a PS2, PS3, or PS1, so at least you have some options out there.
and PS1s are still pretty cheap too,
Yeah.
for some reason. Like I don't know why, but like I just picked up the PS1, the second model. That they came out with the tiny
Yeah, the
baby
little
one.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah, I picked one of those up with some games off of eBay. I think it was only like $60. You know, so
Yeah, they're not too bad. And those are, I think, more durable than the older
oh yeah,
models.
yeah,
older
that's why I
models.
got it because the original one that I have, it's an original model, and it's just starting to get old. Like doesn't load up the games quite as often. Just
Huh.
Yeah.
takes a little more work, but that
Okay.
newer one, it fires up like first time, no problem.
Gotta adjust that laser, man.
Yeah, probably. I'll just send it to you, Nick. You can adjust it.
Really, for something that takes 5 seconds?
Yeah.
Well, we saw how he was before the podcast, so maybe.
That's true.
Hey,
Yeah.
hey, let's not talk about what happens before
We're
the
breaking the
podcast.
fourth wall now. Plug your microphone into the second port in the back of your computer for it to work.
And,
Hey, at
and make
least
sure
it's
you turn
not
it
backwards
around.
anymore. That's good.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I believe we are out of time for today. So before we go, let's announce what we're going to be covering next month. And this game's a lot of fun. I wanted to kind of just take a break from all the serious games and just do something that's real easy to play and just a real good time. We're gonna do Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3: The Manhattan Project on NES.
Cowabunga.
Oh, hell yeah.
Cowabunga, baby. Man, I love that game.
Yeah.
Everybody always talks about the first one because of how hard it is, and everybody talks
Yeah.
about two because it's the arcade port, and everybody loved the arcade game. But I really feel like three, the Manhattan Project, is way overlooked. And
It
maybe
is,
I'm
yeah.
wrong,
It
but I
definitely
feel like it
is.
is because I feel like didn't Turtles in Time come out like just shortly after, like, or maybe even right around the same time?
I would
Well,
have to. I love Turtles in Time. Oh my god.
that's the
So good.
thing. Everybody loves Turtles in Time, right?
Yeah,
Like
I
Because
think
it's
it's
such
that
a
good.
great game. Yeah, it's so good.
I think that
But
was a late NES game, so I think that's part
Yeah.
of the reason why.
yeah, but we'll dive into that next month and see what it's about. So,
Awesome.
all right. One more time, Gary. Why don't you let everybody know where they can find you and where to go to get into your store, man?
All right. The easiest way is to go to joypadlad.com. And if you want to find all the links, scroll all the way to the bottom footer. You can find my Etsy shop with the stickers. You can find other places I sell items as well, as my social media is also down there as well. Um, on Twitter, I have to be at JoypadLad Shop. So that's why I recommend just going to the site and looking at the links down there. Because for whatever reason, like there's some random account with like no followers that's been locked in for ages, and they have the name Joypad Lad. I don't know how they thought of that before me, but so it's Joypad Lad Shop. That's the same as on Etsy, but that's only because I made one account and then I closed my bank account before I could switch it, and they wouldn't let me switch it. So I just made a new account. So easiest way, joypadlad.com. Find all my links all the way at the bottom. That's my story, obviously, too. So if you want to shop there, you can. But you can also find where else I'm at through that page as well.
Awesome, man. Thank you, man, for coming on the show, dude.
All right. Thanks for
Really
having me. And it was
appreciate it.
nice to meet you, Nick. And it was nice to talk to you, both of you guys. Probably the
Nice to
longest
meet you.
we've ever talked. Like we've chatted here and there. But
Yeah, it's nice, right? To actually get to chill for a little bit.
yeah,
And of course, Nick, dude, thank you as always, man. This
Of
show is
course.
not possible without you. You're the brain behind it all. So thank you. And of course, thank you everyone for listening. And if this was your first time checking out the show, man, please go check out those older episodes. There's a lot of good stuff out there you'll like. And that is it for today. So please, folks, remember the light at the end of the tunnel may be you. Goodbye, everyone.
see ya.